Good morning. Thank you all for coming. My name is Neil Barron. I'm Assistant Chief with the Lubbock Police Department. With me is John Caspel. He's also an Assistant Chief with the Lubbock Police Department. We're here to discuss the officer-involved shooting that occurred last night. Let me give you some background on the events that led up to the officer-involved shooting. First of all, the officer is okay, and the K-9 is going to be okay, and the person that we have in custody is also looking like they will be okay. So I'll get that out of the way right up front. Beginning around a little after midnight, about 12:30 a.m., we received calls to the 2000 block of 29th Street in reference to a stolen vehicle. Shortly after that, at around 2:23 a.m., we began to receive calls for several robberies occurring in the same general area. We began to look for the suspect vehicle that had been described in each of those robberies, as well as the initial stolen vehicle. At around 2:30 a.m., LPD K-9 officer located the described suspect vehicle in the 4900 block of Avenue G. Short pursuit ensued with the vehicle. The vehicle eventually stopped in the 4200 block of Avenue N. 4 occupants of the vehicle got out and ran in different directions. The K-9 officer got out of his patrol vehicle and gave chase along with his police K-9. During the foot chase, several rounds we believe were fired towards the K-9 and the officer as the foot chase was ongoing. The suspect and the officer during this foot chase entered a backyard in the 1300 block of 43rd Street. At this time, another round was fired. Again, we believe that was in the direction of the officer and the K-9. At this point, the officer was able to return fire, firing a number of rounds towards the suspect. The suspect in this case was hit one time. The officer was then able to place the 14-year-old male into custody. As other officers arrived to assist with that, the officers also checked for other injuries to the suspect and called for EMS to come. The juvenile was transported to UMC shortly after. We don't believe, as I said at the initiation of the conference, we don't believe right now that the injuries are life-threatening. But the juvenile is still ongoing with treatment at UMC. I'll say again, the officer was not injured during this. The police K-9, his name is Max, was struck by gunfire 2 times, once in the front left paw and once in the right rear haunch area. Both those rounds were not life-threatening. The K-9 was quickly transported to an emergency veterinary clinic and received treatment. I believe the K-9 is still receiving treatment at the K-9 clinics. We have recovered a gun from the scene where the juvenile was taken into custody from that backyard. We are still out there searching for more evidence. As you can imagine, it's quite a scene. The foot chase and vehicle pursuit covered quite some distance. So it'll take us a little bit of time to process all that and make sure that we find everything that's out there of evidentiary value. So we would ask that the public stay away from that area for just a little bit while we continue our search. We are still searching for 3 outstanding suspects in this case. We don't have a lot to give you right now as far as suspect information, but we will shortly, and Carson will send that out to you as soon as we have it. We consider the outstanding suspects armed and dangerous at this time, so we would encourage anyone that after they receive the suspect information to call us and let us come out and speak with them, take them into custody for this. If anyone has any information, we would encourage them to call Crime Line at 741-1000. 741-1000. You can remain anonymous when you call that number. So once we have that information out, please give us a call. We would certainly like to apprehend the outstanding 3. We have been in contact with our federal partners who have offered some help with the case, because this case falls within the area of our Project Safe neighborhood that we've spoken with you all about recently. So they're going to look at what parts of this episode may fall under the criteria for the Project Safe neighborhood. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Assistant Chief Caspel. He's going to discuss a little bit about the administrative piece of this. As you know, there's 2 parts to these investigations. There's a criminal part and there's also an administrative piece. Chief Caspel's in charge of that area, so I'll let him talk about that, and I'll come back and answer questions that you have.
Good morning, everybody. As introduced, I'm John Caspel, one of the assistant chiefs here. The area that I really oversee here at the department is more the administrative side of the house. And so whenever we have an officer-involved shooting, as Chief Barron mentioned, there really are 2 investigations that go on: a criminal investigation into the overall criminal conduct that may have occurred in an overall setting. We also administratively do a separate administrative investigation on officer-involved shootings. And the reason for that is because, you know, when an officer uses a measure of deadly force, certainly firing a gun, that's a very serious act. That's something that the public needs to have a lot of faith and legitimacy that we have acted appropriately whenever we discharge a firearm in the course of our duties. We take that very, very seriously. So on the administrative side of the house, the officer has been placed on paid administrative leave for now. And as you all know, that is not any way an indication of any wrongdoing on the part of the officer. That is standard procedure. That allows that officer to decompress a little bit, get away from work for a little bit, take some downtime, have that officer collect his thoughts and be able to give us a very coherent and cogent statement about what happened. It also allows, on the administrative side of internal affairs and our officer professional standards, to begin their administrative investigation of this and looking not on the criminal side but more on the policy side to make sure that we have a justified use of force and to make sure that the officer's actions, all officers' actions on this call were appropriate for the circumstances. I don't mind telling you that we have done a very brief initial review, and it appears at this stage that our officer did act appropriately. However, we are going to wait until the full investigation unfolds, and we'll be able to detail more of that and see if we can verify that. But as of this stage, it does appear that our officer did act appropriately given the totality of the circumstances. And then typically whenever an administrative investigation into an officer-involved shooting wraps up, it'll probably go before the grand jury as well. The public needs to have faith that, again, whenever we discharge a firearm in the course of duties, that it gets due process, it gets its due review. And typically we use the grand jury process for that, who will conduct their own review after our administrative and criminal investigations are done. And they will give us their opinion as to the justification of our officer's actions as well. The officer will probably be off for a number of days. We do provide counseling services just to make sure that the officer is okay, and we do provide that for their families as well if that's needed. And that's the administrative side of the house on this. Once this press conference is over, our acting PIO will provide you all with the case numbers on all the robberies that were on last night. And we'll turn it back over to Chief Barron, and we're both here for whatever questions y'all have at this point. So,
thank you. Okay, we'll take a few questions.
I just wanted to clarify, the vehicle that the suspects were in that they abandoned, was that the same as the stolen vehicle that was reported earlier that morning?
Yes.
And so what is the specific protocol when it comes to, a canine being treated after one of these shootings? The specific protocol that you guys have to, follow?
Well, we want to get the canine to a vet as soon as possible. It's almost the same as a person. We want to start initial first aid as soon as we can. We want to get the canine to a vehicle and get them to a veterinary clinic as fast as we can.
And do you expect the canine unit to return to duty at some point?
At this time, we do. I talked to our sergeant that's in charge of that unit earlier, and of course, it's very early, so we'll kind of have to see how the canine comes along through treatment and recovery and whatnot. But at this time, we don't see any reason why they shouldn't.
What kind of penalty would exist for shooting at a canine?
I'll have to look at that and get back with you after this.
Is a normal circumstance for canines to be used in general to go after suspects like this?
Yes, yes, it is. Yes. In this case, we had 4 suspects in a vehicle, and they all took off in different directions. So, yes, it's standard procedure for a canine officer to be able to get the dog out of the car and assist with taking people into custody when they run.
You said they recovered a firearm at the scene. Is that the same firearm that the 14-year-old was using? Has it been determined whether or not it was stolen?
Yes, it has been. That gun was stolen. Yes, it's stolen out of Littlefield, Texas. It's very early in the investigation, but right now we do believe that is in fact the gun that was used.
So, not including the one person in the hospital right now, you're still looking for 3 suspects?
Correct. 3 suspects, and we should have some further information in that regard shortly.
Do you believe they're armed and dangerous? Is that what you said earlier?
At this time, we do believe that the outstanding suspects are armed and dangerous.
Do you know if they're all juveniles or are they mix them up?
At this time, we believe that there may be adults. We're just not sure. It's just too early to tell right now.
And what could they possibly be charged with?
We have quite an sundry of offenses with the stolen vehicle, the robberies that they may be possibly involved with, and of course what happened with the person that we do have in custody. We'll have to look at that. It's very early in the investigation to see what all charges we'll be able to charge all the people that were involved with. So.
How did the officer narrow down these suspects as the suspects? He just came to the scene and he saw them within the act, or how did he make that deduction?
Right, the officer found the vehicle. When these robberies and the initial stolen vehicle initially came in, our LPD dispatch puts out a description of the people that were involved, the suspects in these cases, and officers everyone that's working at that time will get that suspected description, either over their MDC or over the radio. And so they're able to look for the vehicle in this case, or people that match those descriptions almost as soon as the offense occurs, as long as we're able to get that information out quickly. So that's what happened in this case. The officer got that information and was able to locate the vehicle that matched the description of the vehicle that was stolen and used in some robberies.
And to clarify, you say robberies, so were people robbed at gunpoint, or were they injured?
Yes, there were some injuries, and it's early to tell what all was involved as far as what kind of weapons and whatnot.
Sure.
But that we are investigating that. So we'll take one more.
Is there a directive to apprehend the 14-year-old as of yet? Or is that
We're working on that. I believe there is one that is out right now that is active, but it is not in relation to this case.
on the 14-year-old?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So an unrelated.
An unrelated case. There is a directive to apprehend in place right now, and we are working towards getting our own for this case.
Is that also in Lubbock?
I'm not sure where that one is out of. We'll have to get back with you.
Okay. And just one last one.
Okay.
Just tell me a little bit about Max, I guess. Police hearts with him, I'm assuming.
I'm sorry?
Police hearts are with the dog, I'm assuming.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure that all the canine handlers, that they were all up here this morning, most of them, and they're going to take good care of the dog, and we want to get him back to his handler as soon as we can. The canine officer was really worried this morning when I talked with him about the dog, and we want to reunite them as soon as we can. So as soon as that canine is available to leave the veterinary clinic, we'll get them back together.
And how long have both the canine unit and the officer been in police force here in Lubbock?
I'll have to check and get back with you on that. I believe it's, I can't say off the top of my head. Okay. Thank you all.
Okay.